We have a creepy little heirloom in my family. A bottle. To be more specific, a quote-unquote witch in a bottle. Sounds dumb, I know, but just to hear me out. Because I've had some weird experiences around this thing. By the end, let me know what you think. Legend has it that my great-great-grandfather was a clergyman, and somehow managed to trap the soul of a witch that was plaguing the town he later came to minister in. He kept the spirit in a small glass bottle and sealed the cork with wax, so any time it cracked, as if the witch was trying to escape, he could reseal it, keeping her safely locked away forever. Stories like that made visiting my grandma and grandpa way more interesting, especially since they lived in the country and come nightfall the woods behind their house would, in my imagination, become where the witch lived and wanted to get back to. My big sister used to tell me it wasn't real, and that the whole thing was just a story to keep us in the house, looking for some non-existent bottle, and not getting lost in the woods. But I remember the first time I saw it. I remember wishing that my sister had been right. I was just a kid, 10 probably, and once again we were visiting my grandparents. It was a clear enough day outside that we were having a barbecue, despite the cold. But while my family was sat on the porch, grilling the meat, or playing with Gunner, my grandparents' bloodhound, I had gone back into the house. Small bladder, I think. Thanks, Dad. I remember walking through the house when I heard something coming from upstairs. I climbed up to the landing where I heard the sound clearer. It was singing. Very light, muffled singing. But where was it coming from? Bang! My heart jumped in my chest at the sound. I looked down the hall and saw the attic door had opened, and the ladder leading up to the dark, dusty loft stood ready for me to climb. I was scared for sure, but the singing was so comforting and warm. I was so curious I just couldn't help but make the climb. I had never been up there before, so I didn't know there was a drawstring for a light bulb. But there was a single window which provided enough light to stir up some courage, I guess. I kept looking for the source of the singing. I couldn't make out the words, but I just remember it sounded so kind, if that's the right word. There was so much junk lying around, but the singing was so close that I turned, and I saw it. A closet. Huge, solid, and old. It was an imposing figure, even if it was just a piece of furniture. But behind those doors, I could hear it. I stepped closer, drawn in by the sound. I can just remember seeing the closet more like a door. It towered over me, and on the other side, there would be someone there. "Spencer?" I stopped as a voice came from behind me. "There you are. What are you doing up here, sport?" It was my grandpa. Apparently Gunner had started whining and barking at the door when I hadn't come back, so a little search party was held. Guess that made my grandpa the hero of the hour. I told him that the attic door had fallen down, and I came up to explore. I don't know why I didn't tell him about the singing, but then I realized it had stopped. I looked back at the closet, only to see my hand was on the door handle. I don't even remember reaching for it. I remember Grandpa saying something about the attic door being dangerous and probably being loose. He came over to me, looked at my hand, which was still on the door, and then back to me and smiled. He then reached up to the top of the closet and showed me a small old key, which he used to unlock the closet door. I tried pulling it open, but it was either really heavy or just really stiff. But Grandpa was able to get it open with just a couple of pulls. And on the inside was nothing. It was just an empty closet. I remember feeling disappointed. Even some assorted junk would have at least been a little interesting to my kid brain. But the singing, where was it? What had been making it? I was so transfixed on the large empty space in front of me that I didn't see my grandpa reaching up onto a shelf at the top until he brought it down and showed me. The bottle. It was so small and dusty, with thick red wax, drip-dried and covering the spout. I knew what it was, without him even saying anything. He shot me a wink and gave me the shush signal, like I was now in on the secret. He then put it back, and we started heading back downstairs to rejoin the others. I recall on my way down I just couldn't take my eyes off the closet. I didn't tell him about the singing even after that. I guess I thought that maybe he already knew, and that if he wasn't scared, then why should I be? It's only now I look back and think he probably had no idea, and just thought he'd let his grandson in on an old family joke. Only I guess I'm the first in a long time that isn't laughing. That night I had a nightmare. The worst nightmare I've ever had. I was stood back in the attic, not knowing how I got there. I was exactly where I was earlier, stood facing the closet. There was a thin wall of moonlight between me and it, enough that I could see those huge looming doors standing in the dark. I wasn't moving, just staring at the closet, when thump! There was movement on the other side of the door. Thump. There it was again, louder this time. Again and again, the closet was furiously hammering. But there was something else. Behind the banging there was a voice. It was angry and desperate, grunting and growling, like an animal trying to get out. I tried to step back, but the darkness of the attic was like a wall keeping me contained in what little light there was. I didn't want to move any closer, and there was nowhere I could go. A sharp crack struck out as well. I looked back at the closet, and the doors were starting to splinter, with fractures of wood spitting out onto the floor. The light in the room started to fade, and when it did, the darkness crept closer, pushing me towards the closet. I fell to the floor and struggled to keep away. The thumping and cracking kept up. The keyhole also began to break. I was getting pushed closer and closer, no matter how much I fought and screamed for help. The voice on the other side screamed, "Let me out!" I woke up, shaking and terrified. There was light in the room. The sun was shining, which made me feel a little better. I heard a soft whine come from next to me. It was Gunnar. He had pushed his way through my bedroom door and was resting his big, droopy face on my bed. I was relieved. I pet him, and he jumped up onto the bed to lie next to me. We stuck close by each other for the rest of the day before we left for home. I miss that old hound dog. It's been years since all that went down. After some time it just became a nightmare I had once, and then a repressed memory I was glad to be rid of. We lost my grandpa recently. Finally gone to see old Ma. It was hard going back for the wake. The whole place just felt empty. But he'd made sure to leave plenty for everyone to clear out after he was gone. There was something special he'd put aside for me, however. An old shoebox with a letter. I opened it. It just read, "Hey, sport. It's your turn to watch her now."